So now I'm going to introduce our guest. I was going to do an announcement, but we'll wait a few minutes on that. Last year, my friend on the right here, MBA grad of the class of 1992, John Wallace, went through some very difficult heart surgery. And that surgery then turned into more complications. And more than anything, I was glad that he went through this journey positively, ultimately, and is here today to talk about it. But I was also moved by the friendships that he has. A lot of those friendships are rooted in his experience here and how that helped him make it through that journey. And he's going to talk a little bit about that today. So please join me in welcoming John Wallace.
Well, good morning, gentlemen. I hope your day and your week is off to a great start. I want to thank MBA and Mr. Joya for having me here to speak. It's truly an honor and my great pleasure. My years at MBA, while perhaps not particularly memorable for the teachers in the room, or my teachers in the room, were a source of great memories for me. You'll learn as you get older, your brain tends to forget the painful parts and remember all the good parts. So I don't know what, if anything, I think that might have been the only thing you've heard Mr. Joya say about me. But right away, I want to make sure you don't jump to any conclusions. I haven't served in Iraq or Afghanistan. I'm not an Olympian. I don't run triathlons. I haven't decreased my 40 time miraculously in any way, at least not yet. I'm pretty much your average Joe. I graduated from here in 1992. I went to Sewanee, where I graduated, and I was blessed to meet my beautiful wife, Ann Lacey. Together we have 4 wonderful children, Jack, Charlie, Evie, and Annabelle. And I've generally been just kind of making my way in life like any other regular person. But as you can see, I am different. I've been through a heck of a journey. About 2 years ago, I was told that I needed to have my heart valve, aortic heart valve, replaced, and I was told by the doctors this was a major surgery, but routine. They do it all the time, hundreds every year, not a thing to worry about. So after getting a couple opinions just to make sure that I needed to have it, I checked in to the hospital at 5 a.m. on March 27, 2017, right up the road at St. Thomas West. I kissed my wife goodbye. I got on the elevator to pre-op. And that's the last thing I remember until I woke up in the intensive care unit about a month later. As you can see, things did not go so well. I'll spare you the details, but I spent a month in effectively what was an induced coma. I had multiple surgeries, excessive bleeding, multiple major infections, multiple what they call microstrokes in my brain. All in all, a pretty rough go. My doctor told me when all was said and done, he said, you were as close to death as a 43-year-old could get without actually dying. But I didn't die. I awoke in the ICU, and I was alive. Seriously weak, disoriented, scared, but alive. And it became apparent after just a bit that I was in my right mind, thankfully. I knew my kids' names, their birthdays, I had a sense of humor. I was back, right? Storybook ending. No, not quite. Turns out through all that I lost circulation to my feet. They were severely damaged, and I couldn't walk. I couldn't even stand. So I spent 3 months on my back in the hospital doing whatever I could to try to save them, and multiple types of procedures. And before long, it became apparent that nothing was going to work, and I elected to have them removed and start my journey without them. And that was August 7th, 2017, almost 13 months to the day from here, where I'm walking up on stage, no walker, no cane, to talk to you all. I don't have that much time. So one man's struggle to survive, right? That must be what I'm here to talk to you about. That's not it. Resilience, positivity, perseverance, all really important, and I'm happy to talk to you about it at some other time. But today I want to talk about something else that I learned that I think is actually more fundamental in life. Today I want to talk to you about love. Now I can practically hear the groans in your heads from here. Love? Come on, man. That's what I would be thinking if I were in your shoes. But I urge you to hear me out because, you see, I've always had difficulty with the concept of love. Sure, I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my family. I love golf. I love college football. But love in that sense to me is a feeling. It's abstract. It's amorphous. Very hard to articulate. How do you love? And what's probably even more frustrating is I've actually put a fair amount of thought into it. Our church, where I go to church, our pastor constantly talks week after week about how, as Christians, we're called to love other people, we're called to love our community, we're called to love our city. And I'm embarrassed to admit that I sat there Sunday after Sunday, and I didn't know what the heck he was talking about. In Matthew, Jesus talks about love. The greatest commandment being, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is like it. Love thy neighbor as thyself. No doubt love is an important component and theme throughout all major religions. So it's a big deal. And for whatever reason, it was a tough one and has been a tough one for me to wrap my head around. How do you love your community? How do you love even a friend? My buddies and I weren't sitting around watching football, talking, playing golf, going fishing, talking about how much we love each other, or how we could love each other better, or love each other's families better. That would have been weird and awkward. I'm not talking about it with people I don't know that well, and I'm certainly not talking about it with people I don't know at all. That would have been even more weird and awkward. But as I came to my senses in the hospital, my wife and parents proceeded to tell me story after story about all the people that came out of the woodwork to support my family and me, clamoring to help in some way. Literally hundreds of people in Nashville, here, in Birmingham, where my wife's from, and in pockets around the country. Literally hundreds. Prayer groups praying for us, people writing letters, sending notes of encouragement and support. And then the people, of course, in this area, the local community, just diving into our lives head first to do anything and everything possible to help. We had people bringing meals, people picking up our children from school, taking them to soccer games, baseball games, anything to help them have a normal life while we went all through this. People offering to do laundry, people offering to clean our house, and of course people who wanted to come visit. And my family was big about making sure that there was somebody with me at all times when I was unconscious in the hospital, 24/7, just to make sure I was getting the proper care and that somebody was there in the event that something else might happen, because it seemed like every day something did happen. And we had lots of friends and family who would show up and come by just to sit with me in my room for an hour, 2 hours, maybe more, just to give my family, my mother, my wife, my sister, father, a break. Let them go get some rest, live their own lives for a little bit without thinking about me. I'll never forget, one of the first things I remember my wife telling me was one of my best friends who has a family of his own, 3 young children and a wife, who came to see me every single day when I was in the hospital. And another one of my good friends who also came a lot and even spent the night with me, at least one night and maybe a couple of nights when I was in the hospital, just to give my family a break. My wife's friends would come sometimes just to sit in the waiting room while she sat in the room with me. They just wanted to be there for her as her husband lay there comatose with a very uncertain future. And so many others reaching out to do something, anything. And certainly many of the people that helped were the people that you would expect. Family, close friends. But there was a long list of people that was surprising. People I never would have expected that reached out, did amazing things for our family. It was overwhelming and it was humbling, and I hope that I will do the same when I have the opportunity. And as I listened to these stories, I began to realize that what I was seeing, what I was hearing about, what we were experiencing was love. This is how you love somebody else. This is how you love a community and a city. Reaching out and doing something for somebody that's in need. Love is not a passive, abstract, difficult to articulate idea. Love is a specific action verb in the active voice. The two good friends that I talked about came and visited me, spent the night in the hospital. Two of my very best friends in the world graduated with me from MBA in 1992. All three of us sat in the same classes that you sit in. We sat in Mr. Lanier's math class, Mr. Moxley's English class. We might have dozed off a couple of times in Mr. Womack's art history class during the slideshows. And no doubt sat in assemblies like this, listening to and probably making fun of people like me. But they weren't the only ones. A tremendous number of my friends from MBA reached out and did something. I had friends who spoon-fed me, crushed ice when I couldn't do anything for myself. I barely remember it, quite frankly. I had feeding tubes stuffed down my throat. I had tubes, IVs coming in and out of every part of my body. It was not a pretty sight. But that did not stop them. They were there. And now you've heard all the cliches, right? Life is a roller coaster. Life has its ups and downs. Well, believe the cliches. I'm living proof of it. The reality is that hard stuff is going to come knocking at your door someday. If you just look at my class from MBA, 26 years ago we graduated. I've had friends who've wrestled with divorce, who've lost parents far too young, whose parents, whose wives, whose children, who themselves have battled debilitating disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, the like. And sadly, we have three who are no longer with us. Now I say this not as some kind of scare tactic, not to bring everybody down. That's not what I'm trying to do. No doubt you have amazing things to look forward to. Events and milestones in your life, with your family, in your career. You have much joy and excitement ahead. Don't let that get lost on you. Now I say this to hopefully help you realize that you are going to have opportunities to jump in and help somebody. I'm lucky in a way. My struggle is right out in the open for everyone to see. I have people always hold the door for me. I have total strangers coming up to me telling me I'm an inspiration. Keep up the great work. I've had people buy me drinks. People have bought my family dinner, complete strangers. But there are a lot of people out there who suffer in silence. Mainly just because people just don't know. They're dealing with an illness that you can't see. Their parents are going through a tough, messy divorce. They're grieving a parent or a loved one or a friend who they've lost. They're struggling with depression or substance abuse. No doubt there are people in this room who have experienced tough struggle or are currently experiencing it. I urge you to talk to each other. Ask somebody how they're doing, and then listen to the answer. There's a song by Guy Clark that I love called Stuff That Works. It's got one of my favorite lines. I loved it before all this happened. It means even more to me now. The line says, "I've got a pretty good friend who's seen me at my worst. He can't tell if I'm a blessing or a curse, but he always shows up when the chips are down." And that's the kind of stuff I like to be around. I'll be damned if that isn't the truth. Be that friend. Don't sit on the sidelines. Look around. The guys sitting next to you, the guys behind you, the guys in front of you, those are the guys that are going to need you to show up. It might be tomorrow. It might be 50 years from now. We all go through tough times, one way or the other. And I can assure you, no one wants to go through them alone. It's certainly not easy. It's not pretty. but lean into your friend's life when they need you the most. Love them. And it's going to be weird, and it's probably going to be awkward, but it's where you're going to make a difference. You know, I've always loved the MBA ideal of gentleman, scholar, athlete. I felt always it perfectly encapsulates the kind of man that I wanted to be, the kind of man I want my sons to be. But as I lay in the hospital bed, and in the months since, I have to admit I thought that it might be missing something. Far be it from me, I'm not going to stand here and advocate that you change it. There's way too much history for that. I want to encourage all of you to strive towards that ideal, certainly. But don't stop there. As you live your life, add to it. Gentleman, scholar, athlete, yes. But also son, brother, husband, father, and friend.